Okay.
Are you getting a break?
A little bit. Are we ready, folks?
Yes.
Okay, so the December 4th, 2023 Charlottesville City Council meeting will please come to order. Ms. Thomas, would you call the roll?
Councilor Payne,
Here.
Councilor Pinkston,
Here.
Councilor Puryear,
Here.
Mayor Snook,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wade.
Here.
Okay, everybody's here. Is there a motion to approve or to amend the agenda?
I guess I had a question, Mr. City Manager. Is the report for social services still at the bottom?
It is, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. I would move for approval of the agenda.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. And moved and seconded, please vote. Everybody approves? 5-0. Thank you. So, as always, this meeting will be divided into three main sections. First is a work session where we will hear and discuss presentations that do not require a council vote. We will go into a closed meeting probably around 5:30, then the city council business meeting, which will begin around 6:30. So we were going to start off the 4 o'clock session with reports leading up to the budget. Mr. City Manager, do you want to start us off, or just somebody standing at the microphone? And
Steve was going to go first, but yes, this is just the continuation of budget presentations by departments and offices. Tonight is public safety with IT swapping out with, they swapped out with
Emergency management.
emergency management. There you go. Emergency management will happen next time. So
Okay.
Steve will take it away.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Waiting for the presentation to pop up. Hopefully it'll be here shortly. But I'm representing information technology. We have 21 positions in IT. Here it comes. Okay. Thanks, David. Brief agenda. Here's our current org chart. We have 21 staff positions. The 2 in yellow are vacant positions. We're actively pursuing those positions. The 2 people in green are members who have joined IT since our last budget briefing or presentation last December. So a couple new staff members. What services do we provide in IT? Well, most people, when they think of IT, they're thinking of help desk. That's our general support. Help desk provides support for 900 plus users throughout the city, 900 PCs. That includes Department of Social Services PCs, which are state computers, but they need some help, so we help out. Over 1,000 phones. Those are desk phones, city mobile phones, tablets, MiFi devices. We also provide 24/7 support for our fire department, police department. We always have someone on call in IT on a rotating basis. Another item of note, the city's PC replacement program. All departments pay into this fund, and our obligation then is to replace their PC every 5 years. And you may not know, but we do the mail for the city of Charlottesville. We go over and get the postal mail every morning and put it in the different slots in the mail room downstairs.
I didn't know that.
And unknown, yeah, most people do not know that, but we do
It's
that.
information.
It's information for life, yes. Help desk analytics, here's our, a chart of our help desk tickets by year, past 10 years. I expect we'll have about 3,800 tickets open and closed this year. That is our system of record in IT. We also provide a lot of strategic resource services. That top one is one that I've been working with Sam and previous to Sam, where we try and help departments who they have a business problem and they need a software solution. And what we were seeing in years past is they would go out, buy a piece of software, try and implement it on their own, and they ended up, by and large, being unhappy with it. So we've tried to get IT in the room to help them with that initial, what do you need, what's out there, and then that implementation, which to me is the key to your success with software, is that implementation process. So as long as we're in the room with everyone, I think it has a much better chance of being successful. We've also been working quite a bit on enhancing and facilitating collaboration through those enterprise tools that we pay for out of our budget. Expensive tools, Microsoft tools. I've been giving these workshops on Microsoft Teams, and one of the slides we present is teamwork trends. And this is a statistic from Microsoft, but they say 80% of employee time is now spent collaborating. Well, these are the tools we use for collaborating. So we're really trying to teach people how you can use these to better collaborate. Because I know, at least in my case, 80% sounds reasonable to me. That's how much I'm spending collaborating with others, and having this tool can be really helpful. So back to those workshops. So we created these What's in It for Me with them workshops. We've held them last winter and spring. We just finished up this fall with some more of these, where we're really trying to teach people why you want to use Teams. What's in it for you? So once you have why I want to use it, then we show them how to use it. And this is a chart of our active daily users of Microsoft Teams in the city, going back to pre-workshops and post-workshops. So we can't prove cause and effect, but we're seeing about 100 additional active daily users in the city of Teams since we started doing those workshops, since IT is really trying to push this is a good tool for collaborating. Other services. The city's Geographic Information System service, GIS. We manage that through our department. The GIS coordinator is in our department. There's 150 users throughout the city. Main users, Public Works, NDS, but plenty of other users of GIS. We're also the lead support and technical resource for our website. Currently going through a refresh project for that, so the website's going to look a lot different. I would say probably April or May. It's really just a facelift. The content organization will stay the same, but it will look considerably different. We also provide support, lead support for the Open Data Portal and MyCville, which is the citizen reporting system, our 311 system. Here's a chart of MyCville requests since we went live in April of 2018. That trend line indicates more and more people are using this system. It is our only 311 system in a sense. We're averaging about 211 per month, people submitting these requests. Majority of them are going to Public Works, NDS, and Parks and Rec staff. We provide innovative services in IT. We have the software application development team, an award-winning software application development team, developed more than 60 in-house applications. And where we fit in is when a department has a need for software, they might not have the budget to purchase one off the shelf, or there isn't an option off the shelf. So we have software engineers who can develop these systems. And some examples include MyHR, which is what employees use for entering time. They can do it from their phone, computer, doesn't matter. The parking ticket mobile app, with the officers out in the field when they're issuing parking tickets. They're using an iPhone app created by the app team. Some of the newer systems are this Home to Hope system and then the city attorney intake system. Cybersecurity. That's always foremost on our mind in IT. I know you all have concern about cybersecurity, and for good reason. These are the different things or services we provide with regard to cybersecurity. Any new employee who comes on board, they have to take their security orientation from our help desk. You all went through it. And you have to sign our security policy before you can start using our network, using your email. We also have an annual campaign. Every user has to go through that, complete it. And then we have that monthly phishing campaign to try and increase people's knowledge of phishing.
I got caught.
You got caught? Uh-oh.
It wasn't bad, but I had to do a refresher. So it
Well,
works.
we make mistakes. We do see the majority of the mistakes are late at night, which the assumption is it's on a phone. It's very difficult on a phone. We see people get caught quite a bit. We also have email protection, antivirus, anti-malware protection, and web filtering. Those are all services we're paying through our budget. Ransomware protection, we use some of these industry standard tools, really good enterprise tools. Thanks to you all approving the budget, we're able to pay for those tools. We've been asked, do you all back up data? We do. We back things up on an hourly and daily basis. And then we have this mobile device management, all these city phones that are issued. Well, we want to keep track of those, so we enroll them in this mobile device management system. The nice thing about that is if you were to lose your phone and it's a city phone and it's enrolled, we can potentially find it, or we could wipe it. If you say it's been stolen, we can wipe it so that the user can't do anything with it, and we can enforce passwords and other things. So some accomplishments over the last year in IT. We'll start with this network core switch upgrade. That's the brains of our network. Expensive pieces of hardware. Past September, those were replaced. They're about 13 years old, which is kind of useful life is between 10 and 15. The S&P building office space. When we were told back in April or May, hey, we're going to have some departments moving over there, maybe some schools, maybe the ECC, we had to stand that up with all their, make sure they had their IT needs met, so we had a bunch of people working on that project. Other operations team accomplishments. When we had the flooding here, we had Commissioner of Revenue, Treasurer's Department, and Utility Billing had to move. Well, there's an immediate need for IT resources, so I can't tell you the number of times we got a chat. Our network person was going over here to set up a printer, and someone else was going to set up some computers. So we really rallied to help with that incident, unfortunate incident. And I mentioned the city's PC replacement program. And with fluctuations in the budget, there have been some years where we've replaced a lot of PCs. Well, the problem comes 5 years later, you're having to replace a lot of PCs again. And this was one of those years. So we've replaced 250 PCs this year, actually more than that. And it's not just you order it and we give it to you. Well, we help work with the customer to order it, like do they need a laptop? Do they need a high-performance PC or not? Once we get it in, we work with the user, what software do you need on this thing? So we really try and make it so when we hand them that PC and deploy it, it's exactly what they need. That takes a lot of effort. And this year, with so many we had to replace, usually that's just a help desk function, but we got a bunch of us involved to help with that. And we each got our 5 or 6 people we had to work with, and we're able to get up to 250, which is a huge accomplishment. That is a lot of PCs to replace in 1 year for IT. On the applications team side, this is back to that where we're talking about the service we provide as a strategic resource. We worked with neighborhood development planning, human resources and purchasing through this implementation of those 3 pieces of software. Enterprise type systems where we are in the room with them in these meetings, helping them so when the implementer asks them a question, we can help them understand, because this might be the only time in their careers they're implementing software. Well, we've done it quite a bit in IT. So we can help them understand, well, if you make this decision, this is what this may mean in 3 or 4 years. So we've been fortunate to be part of those projects. We also, for our help desk system, I talked about that being our enterprise system. We implemented a way that now staff can enter their own tickets. They can see what's happening with their tickets, something they've been asking for a while. Few other items. I talked about those WIFM workshops. I think they've been very successful. That 150 slots filled was just for last winter and spring. Today we had an Adobe Sign workshop. Every seat was filled in City Space, where Adobe Sign is the city's electronic signature system. It's just another example where we're trying to show them how to use these enterprise tools, why they want to use them, but they've been fairly successful. The feedback we've gotten has been really good. We also implemented a new hardware system. I would say if you'd asked me last year, we would have, how good is your inventory? If I was honest, I would say it's okay. I think we're in a much better place this year with this new system. We put a lot of effort into making sure our inventory is more accurate. On the GIS side, this may not seem like a big deal, but it is actually a big deal. This is getting into the weeds, but we did a new city master address data set, which something like the permitting system, we need to know, is this actually a city address? So this was a big project for our GIS coordinator and something that was implemented this year. It's kind of our master address data set 2.0. We implemented I talked about Teams. So when we pushed out Teams 5 years ago, it was the Wild West, which was purposeful. We wanted people to explore it, use it, feel comfortable with it, and not put a lot of guardrails on it. Well, we've reached a point now we need to start putting some guardrails. So we've been implementing some governance structures. Cost reduction. We asked for a lot of money in IT. This may seem a drop in the bucket, but the point of this is, so those are areas where we save some money. When we go through our budgeting process, we have a system for looking at all of our recurring charges throughout the year. And during our budget meetings, which we start in August in IT, we are looking line by line, do we need that thing? Does it make sense? And if it doesn't, we get rid of it. So we are looking for ways that we can save the city money. And then the last item was this, we have a new big monitor in IT that has a bunch of dashboards that we can see right when we walk in. One nice part of that was that with that PC replacement program, we had the app team develop, like those fundraisers where you have a little thermometer telling you how high you're going. And then we had our network guy rig up those, the easy button you get at Staples. He rigged that up so you'd press it, it would make a gong sound, and the thing would go up a little. So we tried to make this kind of a game, and you'd hear the gong go off, and we would cheer. And it was just trying to make it fun because it was a big project, a lot of effort. But that was one of the uses of that big monitor. On the cybersecurity side, we did implement a cloud backup solution. We've always had one in our data center, but we also needed one for our cloud. And fish prone percentage, Councilor Wade, you're not alone. A lot of people were failing this initially, but we've seen a decrease in failures by 63% since we started this last November, so that's a good sign. And then that mobile device management. We have the vast majority of our city phones now in that system, which is a good thing. We were nowhere near that a year ago. Majority of our phones were not in that system. Developed and implemented an incident response plan for cybersecurity. This is something that the city manager had requested a couple years ago. Put that into place last year. A lot of work on the security team to create that. So some budget challenges. This is the digital transformation in our industry. We're seeing cloud and software as a service, it's called. So we've adopted this cloud first mentality in IT. It's nothing revolutionary. Most organizations have been doing this. We're in this difficult position where we still have a data center. So there's this transition from your data center. You can't just do it in a day or a year. So it has to be really thoughtful. So we're really trying to plan this out. How do we move all this stuff to the cloud? It's going to take some time. Cybersecurity, always on our minds, occupies more and more of our time. We have one person devoted full time to it. It's always this balancing act between access and security. People get annoyed with it, which I understand, we understand. So you want to balance that with the security it provides. Okay, I made it in time. Any questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question concerning the cyber security. As council, it's a lot of things that keep me up at night now, but one is that we're hacked and someone holds information as it's ransom. We hear about it in other localities. And do you feel confident that you have all the tools that you need to keep information safe?
So this is being recorded, right? I'm a little hesitant to say yes. I feel good with the budget, the money we've received, and I would share our cybersecurity posture, and I believe I have with some of you, but that would be maybe not in this forum, maybe a better forum. I would say we feel pretty good. We've gotten a lot of good tools to use to help us with cybersecurity. I think when you're in our position, you're always hesitant to say, we're happy, we're good. Mm-hmm. There's always some more things we can be doing, more funds we could use. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's really giving you the best answer.
We may have to get more
but,
detail in the 221, but
yeah.
yes.
I think that'd be a better forum.
Could I ask, I think last year there was a request for, at some point, extra SAP money or trying to think, I know that's like your enterprise software, right? So that's what runs accounting and...
So the city's ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, is SAP. And you all are probably going to hear much more about SAP. We are upgrading our SAP system. We're basically using the same interface we've been using for 15 years. So people, when they come on board, they're like, are you kidding me? This looks like it's from 2005. Well, in some ways it is. So the process to move to this new upgraded SAP is costly. We're going to use an implementer. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort on everyone in the organization, but there were certainly requests for additional funding.
Yeah.
The
Well-
reference to last year was in regards to expanding for the HR modules, success factors. So that's the additional piece that came
Oh, that was a
after the
specific-
original. But there is more to come in regards to the cost of SAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those kinds of software, you just have to, it's like an ongoing thing you have to
Yep.
keep up with, and
You do, like most of these, but now it is nice with this software as a service, cloud-based, which all your vendors are doing. I mean, that's that transformation. They're doing that for
Yeah.
you. So it's not the case where old school, we'd have to make the updates, we'd have to do all that work. Now, there's a cost for that. It's
Yeah,
not
sure.
free.
right,
But there are certainly some advantages to it.
yeah.
So I'd like to, I'll say thank you to your IT team. They speak English. I know they do everything technology, but I've had to zip over more than once. And whenever I went, I told them what was going on, and only once did I have to leave my laptop. Everything else they could do while I was sitting right there. And so that, I'm very nervous. I don't want to break anything. And,
Well, that's great to hear.
Everybody looks at me, it's like, well, no, you can't. Yeah, you can break it, at least in my mind, you can. So they've always been very helpful, either over the phone or in person, so.
That's
thank
our
you.
goal, and we appreciate it,
Thank
and I
you.
will pass that on in our staff meeting. Everyone will like to hear that.
Anybody else? One question I've got, and I realize I'm probably guilty of asking for a question that I don't know the answer to. I had noted a couple of years ago that one of my frustrations with the city's historic files on things like prior council actions and so on is that unless you know what you're looking for, you can't find it. And what I was hoping at some point we would do would be to get to a point where we could have the last 20-some years, however many years we want to go back, of reports that have been prepared for various purposes, digitized, OCR'd, whatever it takes, to then be able to be searchable. I had this particular problem as I was trying to learn more about the property we've just bought at 0 East High Street. And somebody was able to tell me, because they knew to tell me,
Right.
oh, by the way, there is a report from 2000, whatever, the Tortigalis report is ultimately called. But there was no way that I could do a search in the search page that was going to come up with that information, I guess because it probably wasn't an OCR document. Is there a way that we can do something that would make that database more accessible to folks like me?
There certainly should be, and I'm a little surprised. That's something I'll have to look into, because I thought those were all going into one of our enterprise systems called Laserfiche, which is kind of document management, which can do those things. You know, OCR, you're able to search old documents. So the fact you can't surprises me, and I'll look into it.
Maybe I'm just not doing it right. I mean,
No, I
I was
don't
trying to do
think so.
sort of a Google search. You know, that's the way we all think
Right,
these
right,
days.
right.
And all kinds of random things were popping up, but not what I was looking for. So I remember mentioning this at some point a couple of years ago to somebody in or the city manager staff or the clerk of council or somebody saying, can't we make these data sets, however you want to call them, more readily searchable? And so anyway.
And specifically, you're talking about like agenda, like meetings, the
Well,
notes, the...
Yeah, that would be part of it. Let's, for example, I'll give you another example. I was trying to find where in our history we had created the American Disabilities Act Transition Plan. And finally, someone, I think Ms. Thomas it was, probably, who said, oh, by the way, you were looking in 2014, it was in 2013. And then I could go back and try to figure it out, sort of meeting by meeting, until I found And it would seem to me that in this day and time, we ought to have some way of having that be more readily searchable, so that it doesn't have to be that you've got to know where to look before you
Sure.
can find it.
Yeah, no, I'd be frustrated too. Let me look into it.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you bet.
Do you know, I'm sorry, it just occurred to me, do you know are we in the process of updating our website?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And not the content or the organization of it, but it's really a facelift.
Okay.
Color scheme, it's gonna look different.
Okay. And there's an ADA component to that as well?
There always is, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. And we use a service called Audio Eye, which is for ADA reasons on our website.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Ross.
All right, thank you very much.
Looks like we got the police chief coming up next.
And for the record, he got me too, the email phishing thing. He got me twice.
Chief Cotches, before you begin,
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank you and your staff again for the marvelous work you did with the issue that we had at Market Street Park. Y'all just handled that masterfully, and establishing connection and relationships, and able to address the concerns, and just the meeting after that, a lot was going on. Just didn't get a chance to properly thank you and commend you and your staff for. And I'm sure it was the fire and rescue, everyone else was involved, but just wonderful work. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And it was just a really whole of community approach, to be honest with you, to make that go the way it did.
And the key was pizza.
I'm from New Jersey, sir, so pizza fixes everything. Good pizza, too.
Yeah.
We got some good pizza in Charlottesville. So. Okay.
You can give us your recommendations
I-
to the presentation.
Can I? This is being recorded, though, right?
I know, but after the
After, we'll talk.
presentation,
We'll
yeah,
talk.
offline. We don't want to sway your presentation.
Absolutely. Well, Mayor, councilors, and city manager, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the men and women of the Charlottesville Police Department and the hard and oftentimes very dangerous work they've been doing over the last 11 months. This presentation will highlight the focus of this year's budget process for the police department. Over the last several years, there has been significant conversation around the topic of police reform, specifically in Charlottesville. So tonight, I'm going to talk about reform and the steps necessary to accomplish it. But let me be clear. In order to be serious about police reform and culture change, we need to start within the four walls of that building next door. Because if we don't invest in our officers charged with implementing these reforms, it's never going to happen. With that said, I stand here with full confidence that the Charlottesville Police Department will be the police department that our community expects us to be. So what does our community expect? Over the last 11 months, we have conducted 47 community walks, speaking with those who live, work, and visit our community. We have also conducted multiple community meetings, listening sessions, panels, and yes, even anonymous letters dropped in my mailbox on my front porch asking for us to do more to address gun violence and the scourge of fentanyl being distributed on our streets, to the point where an elderly community member has told me they can no longer find a caregiver to come to their home out of fear. These are real stories and conversations that your police department has with our community each and every day, and has formed our priorities moving forward. So let's see how you do this. So first, our why. That's what it all starts with. Communicating a clear vision and mission is the foundation of setting an expectation throughout our organization. This was done and created through internal focus groups, along with input received from the many community interactions, walks, meetings, et cetera, that I just spoke about. Our why is community partners and safety. We can't keep a community safe unless we are partners with the community that we serve. Our mission. I think it's important when we talk about our mission that it's not just words that are posted on a wall. They actually mean something. And if you look at our mission, it was very thought out. It talks about professional, empathetic, relational, and accountable policing practices. And we're using community policing as our foundation. This is baked into everything that we do. Next, I'm going to do a quick snapshot of overall Part 1 crime that we are seeing in the city. Right now, Part 1 crime, and Part 1 crime is defined as serious crime, violent crime, and then they do add some property crimes in there as well. Right now, we are seeing a reduction in Part 1 crime from 2022. If you see the orange part there, that's a projected part. Again, I'm not an IT person, so I'm not sure how they come up with these formulas, but we're projected to have a reduction in Part 1 crime over 2022. We have had 6 homicides within the city of Charlottesville this year. Every one of those have been solved, and they were solved in short order. Theft continues to be a driver of our Part 1 crime. This is both vehicle theft and other type of thefts. Like I said, theft is considered Part 1 crime. And then robbery, rape, burglary continue to see reductions.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
The distinction between theft and robbery and,
Burglary?
yes.
Yeah, so a theft, the best example is if someone walked up to me and took this pen off of me, that's a theft. If someone walked up to me, punched me in the face, and took this pen, that's a robbery.
Okay,
Burglary is typically someone's home.
Got it.
Or something like that.
okay, thank you.
So a robbery would need to be a theft using some type of threat, assault, intimidation, something of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Our gun violence incidents, again, we are seeing a reduction at this point from 2022. They continue to be down after the beginning of the year where we saw some increases. And then confirmed gun-related crimes, those are just offenses that a gun was involved in, okay, that we were able to confirm. So what are some of the contributors to reductions in Part 1 crime? First and foremost, increased community partnerships. It's hard to quantify. But I think the relationships that we're building and the partnerships that we're building, and I think, you saw early in the year the community rally and just really want to get involved in coming up with programs and ideas and just really a whole community approach to addressing what we were seeing. And so while I can't put my finger on a specific thing, I'm confident in saying that the reason we're seeing some of these reductions is because of a whole community approach, and the community has gotten involved and worked through this. We also have seen an increased collaboration with our local, state, and federal partners. Of those 6 homicides, every one of them involved either Virginia State Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the U.S. Marshals, and our other law enforcement partners. They are a crucial and critical role to solving violent crime. None of us can do it on our own because we're just not big enough. And then the quick arrests. When something happens, when we've had a homicide, a suspect, an arrest was done very quickly, and that contributes to as well. A few other things we did, reallocation of resources. Officers are focused on areas that continue to be disproportionately affected by violent crime. We're putting our officers where they're needed. We're also building relationships and developing community partnerships in those areas as well. It's a focus on the areas, again, that when we look at our data going back years, we continue to see the same communities that are disproportionately affected. So those are where we're focusing. I'm working with Human Services as well, and we're looking at focusing those resources in those areas as well as a whole of government approach to addressing violent crime. We've also assigned a lieutenant to each district. We had all kinds of beats and sectors when I first got here. We've now separated the city into 3 different districts, north, central, and south. There's a lieutenant that's assigned to each one of those districts. So when we get a complaint of, larcenies in this area and the community wants to know what they can do, that lieutenant is their contact. They will work with the community to develop a strategy. They'll have a community meeting and come up with ideas, and they will report back to us, my assistant chiefs and myself, on what they're doing to address those issues. And then increased focus on staff to include training, and we'll get into our staff here in a little bit on what we're doing to fill the many vacancies that we had. So our strategic priorities. We recently finished our strategic planning process, and you will see the treatment and wellness of our staff are a priority, because without people, we can't do anything. 100% of our organization are people. 100% of our community are people, and we are in the people business. And so that's where it has to begin. From there, recruitment and retention. If we can't recruit and retain people, we can't address the very complex issues of gun violence, and we're going to be very difficult to build community partnerships. our organizational chart. One of the things we've done over the last 11 months was create another division. That's the Professional Standards Division, and I'll get into the details of it here in a second. It consists of an Assistant Chief of Police, a Professional Standards Captain, 2 lieutenants, 2 sergeants, a Fourth Amendment analyst, and our accreditation office. And here's why we did it. So first, it was budget neutral. We combined positions to create the 4th captain and the a second assistant chief. We were able to do that through different vacancies and different savings that we had within. It aligned our training, recruitment, and accreditation in the same division as in our internal affairs. And we did this because typically, the result of an internal affairs investigation, you identify certain things. Typically, it's training. And so to have them within that area just makes sense. And then also from a recruitment and retention standpoint, you identify certain things in internal investigations, and when we talk to our recruitment team about strategies on who we should be recruiting, the officers and the folks that we need to be out here serving this community, what we're looking for and what we're not looking for. And so they are also, they also fall within that bureau. We aligned the Fourth Amendment auditor with internal affairs. And the Fourth Amendment auditor, what they do, or what he does, is he watches every stop, whether it be a traffic stop, investigative stop, whatever it may be, encounter between an officer and someone in the community, and watches the body cam footage to ensure that it was within, the officer acted within the confines of the Constitution, officer safety, did he act appropriately? And when they find things, they bring it to our attention. So it's a very proactive approach to oversight. And then the increased efficiency in working with the PCOB executive director. And so recently, we have been working on a joint procedure that the ordinance requires in order to share information for investigative purposes. That wasn't done in the past, but we now have a draft that I'm working with Ms. Gonzalez on. I hope to have that done by the end of this month, so she can begin doing the very important work that they need to do. And I'm confident we should probably have that done by the end of this month. But with that, the process of policy change, because we're an accredited agency, it's not just a policy change recommendation is made and we just make it. It has to go through an accreditation process. We have a team that reviews it. There are state standards that we have to make sure it meets, verbiage it has to say, all those things. And so, again, this division does all of that stuff. And so it's been very helpful, and I'm excited about it. So. Okay, patrol division changes. The community involvement coordinator was a position that we created early on. That's Sergeant Eric Thomas. All of the work that we are focusing on in the community, whether it be a community police academy, different events, it takes people to do that work and coordinate it. And so he has been doing a ton of work in that space. And so that position was added early on. And then we filled our 2 vacant canine positions as well that were needed. The community involvement coordinator. So the community involvement coordinator creates programs designed to involve the community in its police department. Community Police Academy, weekly community walks, community action team, which is a group of stakeholders. We meet monthly and review policy and look at body-worn camera footage and unpack specific incidents and interactions, drug take-back events, gun buyback that we're hope to be rolling out here in the new year. Developing partnerships. Recently, I was contacted by a member of the board of the Boys and Girls Club as they're developing their strategic plan to see how they can work closer with the police department with their programs. So we're excited about that, the YMCA. And so Sergeant Thomas does a lot. He also supervises the K-9 unit, and then he's also part of the police department's social media team, which I want to talk about briefly. We currently on our Facebook platform have 19,000 followers, and on our Instagram have 72,000 followers. And here's why it's important. This team, what we did, we developed an internal team of about 6 employees within the police department that meet every Monday and talk about different things we're going to push out and how we can engage the public from a social media standpoint. And it's allowed us to create a significant following. And here's why that's important. When we have a student that's abducted and we have a suspect and we push that out and within hours, we have that face and name shared 2,000 times. And someone who's driving at an intersection in Louisa says, hey, I just saw that person. And they call us and we're able to get them into custody in less than 24 hours. It's a force multiplier. And so it's been really valuable, and I've been really proud of our team that we put together to continue this initiative. Next are vacancies. In January, we had 30 vacancies. Today, we have 8. And I anticipate by February, we may have 2 or 3. And so we are making a significant amount of progress in that area. With that comes cost, and we'll talk about that later. But we're really excited about it, and I couldn't be more proud of the recruiting team that has really just been focused on recruiting and getting, not just recruiting, but getting the right people in these doors that want to serve this community. It's important. And then our professional vacancies, we're down from 8. We now have 5, and we're filling them fast as well. Very
What is a
important role.
professional vacancy?
Professional staff, some call it civilian staff.
Okay.
Not sworn,
Okay.
but they do a ton of work within our police department, more than any other organization I ever worked with. And a lot of them are part of our social media team as well. So.
It'll be your retirement gig, Lord.
All right. New CIP request, operating budget. So here, these are some of the requests that get into the money piece here. Under a new CIP request is a replacement of 5 motors. Why we have that is our maintenance costs on our current motors are going through the roof. And so the ones that we currently have, the motors that we currently have are scheduled to be replaced. This is a regular replacement cycle through the fleet process.
Chief Koch is for, are those motorcycles?
Yes,
Is
I'm
that-
sorry, I say motors, that's cop speak.
Is that,
Yes,
okay.
motorcycles.
So,
Yes.
is there like, supply issues with, ordering those like it is for others? So, like if you order today, would it be 2 years before you get it type of thing? Do you know?
That's not my understanding for motorcycles. I've never been on a motorcycle in my life, so I don't know much about them. What I understand, it's the vehicles, that's a separate challenge, getting vehicles, but I don't believe the same issue exists with our motorcycles. So.
We'll know soon.
We'll know soon enough. The operating budget, new requests. Again, this is under our recruitment retention strategic priority. Regular part-time background investigator. We don't want to slow down our hiring, recruitment, and retention because we don't want to get back to a place where we have 30 vacancies. That's a lot of people to fill. And so we want to continue to be ahead of this. And so background investigations take the longest out of the whole process. It's a significant process. It is a very detailed background investigation. And so having somebody that can do that is important. It's currently grant funded. I want to say through the end of this year, but we would like to make that a regular part-time position. And then a full-time civilian recruiter or professional staff recruiter. And then an independent staffing operational study. And I'm often asked, how many officers do I need? I don't think anyone really knows how many police officers Charlottesville Police Department is supposed to have. In 2016, I think there were somewhere around 126 sworn. Today, we're allocated 109. But for me to stand in front of this body and ask for this amount of officers, I need something to tell me how many I need. They need to do it. There needs to be a study that looks at density, response times, calls for service, all of that stuff to stand before you and say, I need this amount of police officers or not. So we're asking for the funding to do a independent staffing study, which is going to take time. My experience is anywhere between 6 months to a year to do, and then come back to you and give you that information so you can make a well thought through decision. Additional police officers. Well, here's what I do know. We are in the process of creating a co-response team under the Marcus Alert framework. That team right now would consist of a police officer, a paramedic, or a medic, and either a peer counselor or a clinician. These 3 officers would help facilitate that. Ultimately, would love to get the 3 teams. I think are going to plan on maybe 1 or 2 teams, and Misty Graves and Ms. Marshall could probably talk a little bit more about that down the road when that's presented. but this would be to support those co-response teams for people experiencing crisis. And it talks about that. And some of the calls for service when we talk about mental health here in the city, this is just a snapshot, but as you're seeing, unlike Part 1 crime and gun violence, we're seeing an increase in mental health calls for service, and it's a significant one. And here's where we're seeing most of our mental health calls for service, mostly downtown. Operating budget increases.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sir? What is an example of a mental health call? Because it strikes me that
sure.
the numbers that were lower in the other are higher in this slide, and maybe
Yeah.
that's a good thing in a way, because people are intervening
People are calling.
sooner. Yeah.
People are calling, and I don't think this is unique to Charlottesville. I think you're probably seeing this across the country in communities, especially coming out of the pandemic. I'm sure there's a lot that contributes to it. But an example is somebody standing on a median with a knife saying they want to kill themselves.
I see.
And so when you look at a team such as this, you know, you have a police officer there that could deal with the acute nature of the threat. Once that threat is no longer there, knife is down, whatever the case may be, then they could back up, and then the clinician and the professionals could step in and work towards getting that person the help they need. So that's what that is.
Thank you.
So these are some of the increases for operating budget. Annual department-wide de-escalation training. So we have brought in an organization who does procedural justice training and to train our entire organization, and we plan to continue doing that year after year. That costs money. Large-scale training active violent incidents such as active shooter training, stuff of that nature, leadership development track, focused training. We need to develop our leaders. Currently, there's really no specific track of what a lieutenant needs to go to from a leadership training standpoint, a captain, an assistant chief, whatever the case may be. So we really need to organize that, and we need to fund it. And then community engagement, whether it be the community academy, teen nights, walk and talks, all those things cost money. And then our area task forces, the participation in those, it's a minimal cost, but being a part of those task forces it's been tremendous value, and allows us to continue to solve some of the violent crime that we're seeing in a very efficient manner.
Can you tell me a little bit about the teen night?
The teen night?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the YMCA had, when they, either like basketball games, we've done video game nights, stuff like that, so we've been involved in all of those. And I think there was a roller skating thing one time too. I tried my hand and that didn't work out well.
Yeah.
And then a officer wellness program, which we just don't have right now. And so this is just, again, this is fitness, financial, mental health for our officers, different services that we should be and be providing to our staff. We can't send broken cops into broken communities. That's a recipe for disaster. So again, we need to focus on those folks within our organization to make sure we can provide the service that our community expects of us.
So those funds would be supplemental funds, because you're saying fitness, mental health, and financial. And so you're presuming that the money that's in this slide would supplement what the individuals could not afford?
So it would be, for instance, a clinician, an on-call clinician for officers if they needed help or to speak with someone, something like that. An app that officers can get resources on that they have accessible, stuff of that nature. Someone to come in and talk about financial wellness and training to our officers.
Okay, thank you.
And then implementation of our strategic priorities, again, rebranding. We are looking at everything from uniforms to patches to badges. What does all that look like? We have not started that process yet, but we will within the next year. Okay, so as we fill all those long-standing vacancies, there's a cost. The cost to outfit an officer is about $11,500 per officer. And so you remember we had those 30 vacancies and they were funded, the salaries were funded. But what you don't take into effect is, the cell phone that goes with that officer, or their uniforms, or the software license for their MDT or whatever program they have to use, stuff like that, and then training and travel. And so that's the increase that we're seeing in our operating budget as we fill those vacant positions. This is what we talked about earlier. I have the rent up there, so we do still have rental properties that we have one right now that we are using for our internal affairs office, but we are working through that with the city manager to find another space. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through just 3 of our strategic goals that we have and some specifics on there that I want to highlight. Goal 1, like I said, is to reduce gun violence through increased community partnerships, leveraging those state, local, and federal partnerships, developing strategies to assist those in crisis, looking to create more formal and informal opportunities for our youth where we can be involved, technology-driven approaches to enhance transparency within the community and increase public safety, maximize training efforts, continue to strengthen our relationships and build trust in the community. Goal 2 is the recruitment and training. I hit on a lot of these already. I'll go through Goal 3. Again, it's the treatment and wellness of our staff. And then, real quick, these are our strategic goals with measurable outcomes, and I won't go through all of them. There are a few I want to highlight. So under Goal 1, first is our Guardian Score program. Now, this program is about transforming metrics in policing from quantity to quality, focusing on relational policing practices. We hope to have this in effect and rolled out, the pilot, by January 1. It's all done, ready to roll. We're just waiting on the cards to come in, and so we hope to be pushing that out shortly. Again, I talked about the partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. We are looking at strengthening community liaison groups, reducing Part 1 crime, and then creation of a pre-arrest diversion program for youth. I've been working with Misty Graves on that, and we hope to have that up and running by February. We're really excited about that and think there's some real opportunities there. The co-response model that we were talking about.
Sir, what would that
Pre-arrest diversion for
what is
youth? Yeah, so basically if an officer were to engage with a juvenile for, I don't know, they could call it about, say, shoplifting or a theft or something like that. Instead of arresting them, calling juvenile intake, getting them into the court system or process, we divert before arrest, meaning we would call either, we're working with a few groups. Uhuru is one of the groups that we're talking with, but we would have a process where we would divert them to that process, to a person, as opposed to going through into the system.
Interesting.
And so there have been some programs out there that have been very successful in this area, and so we're excited about it.
Interesting.
And then partnering with the Center for Policing Equity and the National Policing Institute on use of force and traffic stop data. We know that disparities exist in use of force and traffic stops. What we don't really know is why they exist. And I think both of these organizations are the best in that area, in their areas. And so this will take some time. We're in the process now with Center for Policing Equity, providing data, sharing all that stuff with them, and hope they'll come back in 6 months to a year with our report and report out on that. So I'm excited about that. And then Goal 2, again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but talking about leadership development tracks, developing an internal mentorship program, and then focusing on homegrown recruitment. We have been doing really well with that lately, which is tough to recruit from within the city of Charlottesville. One, it's not that big, and it's expensive to live in the city. So we've made some progress in that area. And then on our third is the treatment and wellness of our staff. There's a few things, doing annual internal town hall meetings, annual leadership retreats, hiring internal clinicians, and bolstering our peer support program. And that's it. And I'll take any questions.
Okay.
I just am very grateful for the work that you and your staff have done over this last year. I know that, like they say, past performance is no guarantee of future when it comes to financial type things, and I know the same is true for the work that you do, but the statistics that you showed about crime and the people that you've hired, all of those are very encouraging signs. And so I just want to commend you and your staff. I know there's lots of work to do, and particularly around gun violence is still deeply troubling. But I think it's one thing for us to kind of wring our hands and wave our hands perhaps, but what I've seen here today just to me indicates thoughtfulness on all the different pieces that go into trying to address these really challenging issues. So thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you, sir.
So Chief Kotches, kudos on hiring your staff. What do we do regarding retention? Because you're bringing in a lot of people at one time, and you and I both know when you bring in new people to the organization, the culture of the organization changes. The mission and vision is the same, but the culture will change because we all have different personalities. So how do we ensure that the work that you and your team have done to recruit and hire stays there, and in 6 months, you're not looking for 15 more people or,
Well, I think it's an opportunity.
Okay.
I'll be honest, hiring this amount of folks and this amount of new folks. So this vision, mission, values, all of this, I mean, this has happened in the last 11 months.
Okay.
And so I think it's a huge opportunity when we talk about culture change, right? Culture change takes years, 3 to 4 years. I think everybody could agree on that. But I think you're always going to have folks who aren't going to buy in, right? And that's okay. They don't have to buy in. They just can't stand in the way, right?
Okay.
As we hire and we start moving that bar, start changing that culture, start getting the buy-in from the vision and that mission and all those important things that we're talking about here tonight, they're going to push that.
Okay.
They're going to push that. And so, and again, it goes towards hiring the right people, hiring the right folks with the right mindset, not just, our process is robust, and I've been really encouraged about the folks who are applying and who are hiring.
Okay. I would like to thank you for your thoughtfulness in the emails that you send whenever something is happening. And I know it takes an extra time to do that, and what you're sharing with us is important, but it's never alarmist. It's never like, oh my gosh, I'm panic stricken. Okay, when's the next one coming? What? So you, or whoever helps you do that. I mean, I'm sure you do it all by yourself. But the thoughtfulness in the manner that you have communicated to the council since I've been a member of the group has been greatly appreciated by me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Other questions, comments?
Did you have to, I know a year ago we were talking about salaries and not being competitive and the university and the county and all of these things, and that, if I missed the invitation, I'm sorry, but I don't know that I got an invitation to come to the new hire class, although I could have missed it. But I hope next time we do get invitations. But when I saw in the newspaper or news that there were 17 new people, I was like, holy smokes.
14.
14.
And I do
okay.
apologize. There
That's
should have
okay.
been an invitation that went
Yeah,
out. I'm sorry.
I probably missed it, but I mean, what was how did that happen?
I'm asked that. So we had
Yeah.
14 graduate to class. It was the most diverse class that we've ever had in this police
Yeah.
department. It was the first minority class that we've ever had.
Uh-huh.
And how did that happen? I asked myself that because my team did that. That we assigned folks to our recruiting and retention area to do backgrounds and interviews, and we did a few hiring blitzes here in the city where basically show up, do everything the same day. And so I just think it was just that they knew what we needed to do. and they got it done.
Yeah.
And we let them do the work. So I'm still trying, I get that question from a lot of people, and I'm trying to figure that out,
Well,
how that
that's-
happened. But
it's
it's
a good-
still happening, I can tell you, wait till you see the next class in January.
It's a good thing to have to try to explain.
Yeah.
One question, could you just talk in some more detail about the co-responder model in terms of what you're looking at in terms of hope for timeline and what that model may be in terms of who's responding to calls? I know you gave the one example of a mental health call, but obviously there may be some that may be more routine. Are you looking at a partnership where maybe police are not, the initial contact, or just what the hoped for goal is long term?
Absolutely. Any opportunity we can have to remove our law enforcement from those scenarios, we want to do. And so there will also be a lot of follow-up. So there's the opportunity for this team to folks who we continue to get called to that are in crisis, because at the beginning, it's not going to be able to be 24 hours, right? I mean, ultimately, that would be the goal. And so if our officers late at night are having to deal with someone in crisis, that team can follow up the next day. It doesn't have to, it could be the clinician that can go out and follow up and get help and stuff like that. So, but yes, there will be scenarios where the police officer doesn't have to go, or the firefighter or the medic doesn't have to go. Everybody loves firefighters, so we probably want to. But I know the fire chief's back there. But yes, there's going to be those opportunities, and so any opportunity we have to do that, we will.
And then I saw it said year 2 in the strategic plan. So is that something that's hoped for within a 2-year time frame from now? There's something that's launched and off the ground?
So my year 1 is in a month and a half. So we were hoping February. So that would be within my second year.
Okay.
So I'd say in the next 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Fire Department.
The other Michael.
How's everyone today?
Great.
All right. I want to thank you first of all, Mayor Snook, members of council, Madam Clerk, members of staff, for the opportunity to present to you this briefing. I'm here to talk a little bit today about current things that the fire department is engaged in, service delivery, in addition to what we're looking to do moving forward with the community. The first chart here is our organizational chart, just to show how we're set up. We have the fire chief, we've got an executive assistant directly under me. I have 3 deputy chiefs that have oversight over 3 different divisions, which is emergency services, business services, and community risk reduction. And that's the basic operations of the fire department right there, how we get the work done. We have currently 123 employees assigned. We do have some vacancies, so we're not fully staffed. Out of that, we have 117 allocated, sworn. We have 6 civilians and 1 part-time and 2 returning retirees to perform that. This is a depiction on how they're broken up and where they're stationed and staffed at. Core functions of the fire department, as I've repeatedly said, we're all hazard service delivery department. What does that mean? Any critical incident in the city of Charlottesville, it's highly probable we're going to be there in one form or in many forms to provide service to the citizens and to support the other departments that are on the scene. Fire, residential, commercial, anything related to that. We cover EMS. We provide advanced life support as well as basic life support. We do technical rescue and hazardous material responses. Community risk reduction, a lot of education for the community and other departments as well. Prevention and fire investigations, inspections, community engagement, incident recovery, And then we have professional standards, and that's training, certifications, professional development, hiring, and promotions. Calls for service. This chart shows from FY20 to FY23, and you can see the increase of calls over the years. There was a huge jump between 21 and fiscal year 22. Several reasons for that: proximity dispatch and a second medic unit going in service during that time frame as well. The bulk of our calls are EMS related, and we always monitor and engage in ourselves in terms of how we respond and how we respond to those calls. So we do a 50 percentile assessment on ourselves, and with the 50 percentile, we are out of the house from the time of dispatch in 57 seconds. And then to make it even more stringent on us, to hold ourselves accountable, we do a 90th percentile, which we average 2 minutes and 8 seconds from the time of dispatch to turn up time to respond to the call. I think it's important to say that we're internationally accredited, and we have a Class 1 ISO rating. What does that mean? ISO sets the property insurance premiums for many insurance companies, and the lower the ISO rating score, the potential for better premiums in business and residences. Again, we're Class 1, and we are internationally accredited. And out of 29,000 plus fire agencies in the U.S., we are one of 117 that have the international accreditation and that are Class 1 ISO rated.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a snapshot of our operating budget. Couple of things to really focus on here. From FY19 to FY24, you see a continual increase in our budget. The line item for the totals on the bottom, and then personnel is our biggest chunk of that pie. Revenues and expenditures. County contract, that is zeroed out now. We have transitioned over to a true mutual aid agreement with them. They have put the infrastructure and resources in place to absorb more of their calls in the county, so that automatic aid where we were responding to the county to assist them, they're able to cover. So we have a balance now. So we respond to them, they come to us, but it's a true mutual aid agreement now versus an automatic aid where they were offsetting that. That was annually about $200,000, so that's going to be zeroed out. EMS billing, that's just a projection. Same projection as the last year, and we actually brought in 1.2 million, I think it was, for the last fiscal year, and we'll see in July what the numbers look like once they come in. But we're projecting 765,000. UVA contract, hopefully the negotiations will begin soon. I have reached out to set the schedule for that. I'm waiting on a response from them. Our current, well, the existing contract expired 6/23, and I was able to meet with them and get an extension for 1 year, so this one is good till 6/24. So we're looking to build a more robust contract in the longer term, so we don't have to keep doing year to year, do something long span. We have a future goal of doing some fire marshal related permitting and inspection fees. Several city managers ago and several fire chiefs ago, this was brought to council and discussed. Deputy Chief Phillips is in the process of seeing what the status of those meetings and where it lives now with the city attorney's office. So we'll know if we need to start from scratch or if we can pick up from the previous presentation for that. We have a couple of grants. The Four for Life, which is $35,000, give or take, and that's an annual grant, as well as the Assistance to Firefighter grant. That's $209,603. We've got a combined proposed FY GL code increase to date. Administrative costs, $20,000 for utilities. EMS funding from a grant source disposition for inventory. It's averaging about $50,000. That's going to be an increase. We've historically had I'm trying to get the appropriate name for it, what's it called? Exchange program with the UVA. So as we take patients to the hospital, the medications and things we use for the patient, we go in and supply stock from them that we use for the patient, and that carries on with the patient. We've just been informed that UVA is in the process of changing that format, and the drug boxes now will only consist of certain specific drugs. So the IV sets, IVs, and everything associated with to perform that will not be restocked. So we're going to have to take that. And it's just not for us, it's any medical agency coming to them. So that's going to be an expense. CRR, we had some investigation program and supplies and equipment that we needed to increase to get that back up and running and stocked so we could perform those duties. And resources, our cleaning supplies, uniforms, fuel, and repairs and maintenance to our equipment. We've seen an increase in that. The total, we're looking at a little over $250,000 for that. What's new?
Go to the
Joe's the right one.
Should we take a pause, or
Yeah.
we don't?
I think they're probably okay out there. We'll keep on trucking if they find where he was at in his slips here.
It's up to you.
You just said something about $1 million. I remember that.
All right.
There wasn't much left, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he hadn't touched on this, I don't believe. So he's working currently with the city manager's office on some fire chief's operational directives. That's kind of lining up a few of the key emphasis and focus points for the department in the next year or so. Just made some promotions for deputy chief, battalion chief announcements were made, and then we've got 5 captains that have been offered the positions that are subject to being awarded in the next few days probably. They, of course, have the option to defer, but those announcements have been made to those captains that successfully got through that program. There is a proposal that we're currently working with the city manager's office as well as some other stakeholder groups on the collective bargaining team with maybe transitioning over to a single role EMS model with some of the transport care delivery schemes that we have, as opposed to hiring dual trained person, fire and EMS. They would just be EMS only. So it opens up another group of potential applicants that may not be interested in the fire side of the delivery model. There's a few private agencies around the general region, as well as UVA, that have some EMS persons that we just historically haven't been able to maybe reach out or recruit with, or two, because of that other fire layer that they may not be interested in. Proposal to implement EMS supervisors along with that would give them basic day-to-day oversight of that smaller group of personnel that would be a single role EMS. We heard from the police department about the anchor team tied in with the Marcus Alert in those positions. CFD role proposed 2 EMTs, or excuse me, 2 EMS FTEs, maybe BLS or ALS, and if that effort's approved. And they'd be co-responders, like they were mentioning, collaboration with the other departments and police and the clinician support. We talked about the medication dispensers a little bit in the last slide. There's a grant initiative to offset some of the Narcan and opioid epidemic kind of outreach efforts and response. With that, some medication dispensers that we'd also be able to use with some of the equipment and supplies that Chief Thomas was speaking about with the IV therapy, the things that go along with our responders in that Narcan distribution or use in the field. And then that next line with the EMS regulatory and drug storage needs and that infrastructure, that all ties back through that. The framework for the CRR permit and safety inspections he spoke about with Deputy Chief Phillips investigating kind of where that stood with the information that went to council prior, and then the bargaining contract. We're not to the point of having some of what's called tentative agreements on some of the economic related items yet, or final kind of contract resolution with some of those economic items. So we're not sure in our FY25 kind of projection or look what some of those impacts may be. As far as the new fire station update on the bypass, the funds have been allocated. The bids close for the project on the 15th of this month, and they're looking to break ground shortly thereafter, depending on the contract award and the contractor after the first of the year. And then it's slated on paper as an 18-month construction process or build process.
So if the bids close December 15th, I assume that means they've got to be awarded at some point before you break ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how,
They're
that's
on a
not
tight
much lead time.
I think facilities is of course leading that effort, and I think they realize it's a tight time frame, but I don't know. That's what they still have on paper right now. So through facilities.
So this is going to be a new station and the old one will be demolished, or are you doing renovations to what is currently
Yeah,
there?
the existing station wasn't factored in to be demolished with the initial allocation. Fire Chief Thomas put in a request to City Manager Sanders to hold that station. We're a little bit cramped for space with the Ridge Street station and a few of our other sites. So the idea presently is to take a little bit of money and do what we can to the what is right now the living space, the second floor of that existing station, and turn that into the fire marshal's space, the CRR office. They're currently occupying several different little offices in Ridge Street for plans review, staff, storage. They've got evidence that they may need to hold for a certain period of time depending on what is being processed at or for. The supplies to collect that evidence, all that's kind of just hodgepodged into Ridge Street at the present moment.
So you're going to repurpose the old building,
Yeah.
basically?
Yep.
And there'll be some monies to
Yeah, that's
redo
in with
that?
the
in the
request for
CIP.
current CIP.
Oh, because it's repurposing its CIP? Okay. And then the last question I have, Chief Thomas was talking about, I don't know, emergency equipment that is utilized when you're transporting patients to the hospital, and it used to be, we use this, so now you take this back, et cetera, et cetera. Is there going to be a fee now, or will we just have to purchase additional materials? So if we use 5 IVs while you're transporting me, then you're going to have those somewhere else to replace those 5 versus getting the replacement as soon as you deposit me at the ER.
Yeah, that's essentially, yep, you pretty much got it. The drug box program right now, they're looking, I think, the way it seems to phase it out. Right now, it'll be the IV supplies, then downstream it may be the whole box. If we do lose that program, that comes with the DEA oversight over the scheduled medications and everything else that the pharmacy now does. So that would require us to absorb that infrastructure and oversight ourselves,
Okay.
Which we historically haven't had to do. Right now, Schedule 6 is about the licensure we have to hold materials on site, and that just would be like IV supplies. We'd have to go to that higher schedule, which basically this new bypass fire station a room was built with that potential being in mind, that we'd have to have those security, those biometrics, those other things in place to be able to potentially hold that more of a, like an in-house pharmacy.
So now
downstream.
you're building a new place that can take care of that accommodation?
Yeah, if it comes to be.
Okay, is that more money? Is that additional training? Is that additional certification?
There'll be some certification for the person that we have to manage that, and that may be dependent on the look of how it formulates through the Regional EMS Council. If we have to take it on solely by ourselves, then yeah, we've kind of mentioned to the city manager's office that may be a position downstream that we have to get specifically.
Okay.
Otherwise, there'll be some front-end money with the supply allocation to get it up and running. And then through the revenue recovery, through the billing, there are some items that we can recover, like you were saying, if we were to pick you up and we used X number of supplies, that's on the approval of the billing entities and what they allow and don't allow based on the information they have on the call. So we may capture that money back solely from what we used, or we may get a portion of it back. It just depends. So.
Thank you.
Like Chief Thomas was mentioning as well as part of some of the slides prior, there has been some turnover within the department. We have 22 new hires during the period of time of FY23 to 24. We've had several members separate, either resignation, retirement, some other change of employment. 10 department personnel are eligible for retirement in the next 2 or 3 years, so there's some planning for those potential departures if they should choose to retire, and those are typically in the captain to battalion chief to deputy chief ranks, the upper ranks of the department. And then currently we have 12 vacancies as it stands, and then we have a recruit school that's graduating in first of 2024. That's not inclusive of the 12 current vacancies. That's prior to those, we've got 12 with that recruit school in place. Some of the challenges that we have, like we were just mentioning, recruitment, retention, the police department spoke about it as well. Competitive market, somebody mentioned the competitive wages from agency to agency. A younger workforce as far as knowledge of the job and the training. So the training minimum hours that are listed there, the ISO hours that are listed tie back to that rating that we have. So for firefighters, 216 hours per year. Drivers, the people that operate the apparatus, 228 hours per year, and then officers, 228 per year. In addition to that, the BLS, or the basic life support EMT providers, have 40 hours they have to get of continuing education over 4 years. Paramedics, about 60 hours over 2 years. Hazmat technicians, 24 hours every year. Blue Card, I see the incident commanders. We run everybody that's a 2-year employee forward into a command and control course. That's a systematic way that we try to manage incident scenes here locally. That's 36 hours over 3 years, and then technical rescue is about 22 hours a year. We still have some overtime factors coupled in with relief factors, growth of new programs, initiatives. Spoke a little bit about the inflationary costs with personal protective equipment, medical supplies, fire apparatus, the build times somebody mentioned earlier when the police department was talking about the motorcycles. That fire apparatus, we've gone from year and a half build time to 2 to 3 to 4 years, depending on how you're building the piece of apparatus. And then we've got existing facilities maintenance, be it at the Fontaine Station or the Ridge Street Station space that we talked about with the Fire Marshal's office, as well as the replacement schedule for stations like Ridge Street. And then settling into the collective bargaining, like I mentioned, is still kind of waiting to see exactly how that fleshes out departmentally. Opportunities, training for our newer officers and operational level tactics, staffing improvements, filling the current 12 positions, dual trained like we talked about earlier versus single role, just hiring in folks to run those EMS related positions on the ambulances. Invest in the EMS service delivery, that single role option with the EMS supervisors, and then the alternate response team that was spoken about prior. And then growing in the community risk reduction, a plans reviewer to a FTE. Currently, we have a retired battalion chief, Chief Walton, that has been serving in that role as part-time after he retired. He's the primary plans reviewer. We have a secondary That's one of the battalion chiefs on shift that came from the fire marshal's office, but we don't have a full-time person reviewing the number of plans for the fire protection systems, et cetera, that come into the city and the department. Community outreach, full-time employee, somebody to assist with those educational programs going out into the community, and then permit fee inspectors or inspections. If we do get that model up and running, there's some credentialing and some costs associated with having folks doing those permits and those inspections. Here's an overview of the mission, values, strategic plan, and neighborhood risk assessment. All these things kind of couple into what we've talked about prior to this, as far as the plan with the city manager's office for the next 1 to 3 years, the different things to keep the department going as far as the inflationary increases for equipment, preventatives, the training, all those things coupling into the core values, our strategic plan. And then the neighborhood risk assessment does a little bit of what the police chief was talking about, looking at the different communities within the city, seeing if there's any uptick in kitchen-related fires versus medical emergencies versus false alarms, any number of things that could be hot spots within the city at any given time. So there's a neighborhood risk assessment that the department members outreach with the community and partially develop, and then there's data metrics that come through our IMPERS, our records reporting system, that populate, and our data analyst is able to look at those geospatially across the city and see where the activity is with some of those incidents. And then we have any questions that may be for us.
Do we still have a mandatory retirement age for your firefighters?
Yeah, 60 is the mandatory retirement age for public safety presently. You have the option of 25 years, and 50 is the earliest you could leave. But 60, is the age we still have.
But is that currently factored into the positions that you need, or no?
The folks that are retiring within the next couple of years, I think there's only one or so that may be topping out age-wise.
Okay, so that's not a part of the 12 that you talked
No,
about?
most of the folks that are eligible or either just hit that 25 and 50 threshold, or they're in their 50s and they could go at any time. They just haven't
Okay.
chose to leave.
I see.
Are we still, thank you for that, are we still partnering with CARS? Is that still
Yes.
basically
Yeah,
as
there's
it
an
has been?
agreement that's currently being flushed out to revise the 2017 agreement. And that's got some of the more present day, through the city attorney's office, city manager's office, present day dynamics that are in play as far as the way the billing regulations go. And it's kind of reworking that. They're still able to supply 1 unit during the day, 2 units in the evening predominantly. And then usually in the evenings, weekends, holidays, they'll have additional staff as well. More just because of their agency dynamics, and the industry has made it harder to get to that advanced life support level. They have more basic life support personnel than they have advanced life support personnel. So that's a majority of the calls that they're running, but they do at times have advanced life support personnel as well.
And that's a helpful sort of
Oh, yeah,
addition connection
Yeah,
to.
that offsets a good number of the basic life support calls.
Got it.
The way proximity works, it's basically taking the closest appropriate unit and sending it to the call. So they still have that predominant area around their station as their primary kind of response bubble, but they also push out into the city. And then if the transport unit from Ridge Street or Fontaine's out, then it'll pull that CARS unit still, or vice versa. If they're out, it'll pull one of the Fontaine or Ridge units.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, council? Thank you.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
And then our last person up is talk about the Police Civilian Oversight Board. Ms. Gonzalez?
See if I can figure this out. So good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Wade, distinguished members of the council, Mr. City Manager, members of the City Manager's staff. I'd like to talk to you today about the FY25 Police Civilian Oversight Budget. And I apologize if I'm a little nervous because this is my first time presenting to the City Council and it's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse.
We don't bite.
Relax, just relax.
We just have poker faces, we're practicing.
So let's see if I can. No. All right.
There we go.
If I can work the switch, we're in good shape.
It has its own trigger, just press.
Okay, so in sum, the Police Civilian Oversight Board aims to provide objective and independent civilian-led oversight of the Charlottesville Police Department to enhance transparency and trust, to promote fair and effective policing, and to protect the civil and constitutional rights of the people of the city of Charlottesville. Currently, the Police Civilian Oversight Board members are appointed by all of you, the members of the City Council, and are civilian volunteers representative of the Charlottesville community. Currently, we have an 8-member board. There are 7 voting members and 1 non-voting member. The non-voting member is expected to have law enforcement background, and although they're not a voting member of the board, the purpose is to provide insight to the 7 voting members of the board concerning police practices and policies to help them better understand. The remaining 7 members are representative of the Charlottesville community. They're expected to reside either in the city of Charlottesville or to be employees of organizations that provide services to the citizens of Charlottesville. So the PCOB Executive Director, yours truly, is the only current city employee devoted to performing the police oversight function, which is the reason why I'm standing before all of you right now in the hopes that I can change that. So this particular slide is exciting for me because it's more representative of a wish list than an actual organizational chart. Currently, I operate under the leadership of the city manager and report directly to the deputy city manager of social equity. The good news is that despite the fact that the boxes in red are representative of what I'm hoping I have, box number 1, which is the management analyst position, has already been funded. It was a position that was requested by my predecessor, approved by the prior city manager, and funded during a request graciously taken care of for fiscal year 24 budget preparation by the Deputy City Manager of Social Equity. The remaining 2 positions are what I'm hoping to convince all of you that are necessary. The administrative assistant position I'm hoping to be able to acquire for the purpose of actually staffing the PCOB office, which currently sits on the mall about 2 or 3 doors away from city space. And the reason why that's important to me is because as the only city employee performing the PCOB oversight function, like any other director in the city of Charlottesville, I'm expected to engage in activities in addition to the PCOB function. So while I'm attending meetings and trainings, I can actually have someone in the office answering the phone, greeting guests, taking complaints, updating our portal, and updating the information contained on our webpage, which hasn't been done for quite some time. As far as the investigator auditor position, in order to engage in true oversight, we need to be engaging in activities that are not just strictly waiting for a complaint to come in and then investigating it. We should have individuals conducting constant audits of police body-worn camera video, dash cam video footage, pulling old investigations, reviewing them for quality content accuracy to see if there was any deficiencies in the investigation, and that's all something that should be happening consistently and not just waiting for a complaint to walk in the door. So I want us to be more proactive. We've been more reactive in the last 6 months. So this slide is representative of the budgets that I acquired. This was budgets that were, again, approved, requested and recouped prior to my hiring. You'll see an increase in the FY24 budget, which is representative of the management analyst position being funded as part of FY24. I don't have a great deal of information concerning the other expenses. The best that I can explain for the decrease in FY24 in terms of our other expenses is because for FY24 there was a period of 6 months or more where you didn't have any activity whatsoever due to the resignation of my predecessor. So this is the proposed budget. Again, like I said, the good news is that FY24 is representative of the management analyst position already being requested, approved, and funded. Therefore, the FY 2025 proposal is for the additional 2 full-time employees that I'm hopefully requesting and will be approved for. The operating budget decrease, I want to say again, is a best guess that I took from information gleaned from my predecessor's 6 months in FY '24, his expenditures, plus the addition of my expenditures in the 6 months that I've held the position. So since May 1st of this year. So the draft work plan for fiscal year 2024 was the revision of the Police Civilian Oversight Board ordinance. What I'm proposing is the creation of the Office of Police Civilian Oversight and for it to be placed organizationally under the Office of the City Manager. And the reason for that is that it's my understanding that unfortunately sometimes interest wanes and boards tend to die and become inactive. That should not in any way, shape, or form control the activities of the what I'm hoping will be the Office of Police Civilian Oversight, so that our activities will continue whether or not board participation happens or not. I'm also proposing the title change of Executive Director to Director, and the reason for that is simply to just bring us more consistent with current boards, for example, the Office of Human Rights, to make us more consistent. It's my understanding that prior to my hiring, there was I guess an audit done of the titles and salaries within the city, and one of the things I'd like to do is just to bring us more consistent with everything else that's going on in the city. I'm also requesting a revision to our standard operating procedures to align more accurately with the city ordinance and to decrease obstacles that have been preventing the executive director from engaging in oversight activities. One of the things that I gleaned from my recent attendance at a conference in Chicago concerning police oversight is that the bureaucracy that is sometimes created in offices such as my own impedes our ability to do our work within a time frame that's conducive of building trust within the community. What we're finding is, again, through that conference that I attended, is that very oftentimes civil litigation concerning police misconduct will resolve itself quicker than the recommendations and activities that stem from police civilian oversight because of the level of bureaucracy that's created. You're creating a lot more hurdles as opposed to actually engaging in actual oversight activities and being able to make recommendations immediately after something transpires, as opposed to waiting for a whole host of other things and approval and recommendations and plans that have to be put in place. The idea is to decrease the bureaucracy as much as possible so we can better serve the community. We also intend to, again, hopefully increase our staff that will allow us to engage again in more of that oversight activity. So while I'm, for example, conducting an investigation into an allegation of misconduct, the management analyst can be collecting data while the auditor can be auditing body-worn camera footage. As it stands now, it's my understanding that the Fourth Amendment auditor is dealing with approximately 130 calls for service a day, and unfortunately is completely incapable of handling that type of audit activity. So the Fourth Amendment auditor has to prioritize, and so they prioritize based on high-profile incidents, as was the case, for example, with the allegation at the park. Also, anything that involves arrests, in custody injuries, anything that's of a high profile, he has to prioritize because he's completely incapable of actually watching 130 hours worth, or 130 calls for service worth of video footage. And that's where I'm hoping that my investigator/auditor can come in, where we're all engaging in oversight activities simultaneously and not just every once in a while and sporadically. And again, the last thing, we want to engage in meaningful, measurable oversight activities. We want to be able to audit investigations to identify patterns of behavior and recommend corrective action. We want to be able to audit body-worn camera and dash cam footage to identify misconduct that went unreported. We don't know what we don't know until we start looking. Not every single solitary incident that involves an interaction with the police that's not favorable is reported to the police. There are oftentimes barriers. For example, if you have a criminal history, you may be concerned about filing a complaint. If you are an undocumented individual, you may be concerned about filing. So we don't know what we don't know until we start looking. Now, hopefully there's nothing there, but it also serves for us to identify weaknesses in policies or training opportunities, that we can make recommendations to the police department. So challenges and opportunities. The chief briefly touched on this, but there were specific provisions of the city ordinance that were recently challenged in terms of what our capabilities are, what we have access to and what we don't have access to. The good news is it presented us with an opportunity now that we actually have a chief of police in place that's willing to work with us, a city manager that's also interested in working with us, the city attorney and myself, and we're able now to get together and collectively put together a standard operating procedure that will govern how information is shared between the police department and the PCOB. And I think that's one really big hurdle that's going to remove one of those obstacles to us getting our jobs done. And then lastly, of course, we want to be able to rebuild trust in the Police Civilian Oversight Board. We want to be able to engage in transparent, measurable oversight activities and make public reports of the PCOB's activities, findings, and recommendations. And we want to include which recommendations resulted in changes implemented by the CPD, but also which ones were not and why. And so the very last slide resonated with me because I don't want us to forget the reason why the PCOB was created in the first place. And something that I learned from coming from a city, my hometown, where police brutality back in the late 60s resulted in us practically burning our city down to the ground. And we've seen as of late that it doesn't have to happen in our own community for people then to rise up and demonstrate. And the George Floyd incident was one of those instances where we saw protests that took place not only throughout the country, but throughout the world. It resonated that much, and I don't want us to forget, and I don't want us to become complacent. And so that's why I think it's important for us to continue the work that we're doing, to be able to fund the activities of the PCOB and make sure we have the staffing necessary to do what it is that the community expects of us, and to create relationships, positive relationships between ourselves, the community, as well as the police department, to prevent any type of that kind of activity occurring in Charlottesville in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Not
Questions,
really,
anybody?
but I'll take it.
So if you were nervous, let
Very.
us know what you're like when you're not nervous. How's that? How's that? How's that?
Don't hold that against me.
I have a New Jersey connection too.
Don't hold that against me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
And folks, it is now time for us to adjourn to a closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed meeting?
I have that here.
Okay.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, I move that City Council close this open meeting and convene a closed meeting as authorized by the Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A8, for consultation with the city attorney regarding legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice, specifically legal matters related to the proposed zoning ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote. Okay, that is approved 5-0. We are now going to go into closed session. We'll return at 6:30 or as close thereto as we can. For those joining by Zoom, there will be a separate link for the 6:30 meeting. See you all in 45 minutes.